there are around 700,000 people registered to vote. So as the Botswana Congress Party, we believe that there are more efficient and cost-effective ways of reforming the current electoral system, which as the DCP, we do believe that serious reforms are needed, but we are totally against the idea of EVM because as we indicated in our press release, it's something that really makes rigging very easy for the current ruling BDP.
A lot of countries are moving towards electronic voting. So why is your party, the Botswana Congress Party, so against the use of electronic voting or technology?
One of the critical issues that we have as a political party is the questionable independence of the current elections management body, the IEC. We know that the IEC is no independence. And we do know that this EVM or the electronic voting machine is not necessarily even the idea of the IEC, it's the idea of the current ruling party. So we are concerned about rigging, looking at the broader electoral system in Botswana, which really, to a large extent, you may know that the person who releases the election date is the president of the nation. And as far as the parliamentary elections are concerned, and for local authorities is the minister in the office of the president. So all those are the concerns that we have.
Why do you think the government is trying to manipulate the elections? Because the ruling party has a majority in parliament. Not only that, it won a sizable majority. The president won a sizable majority. So re-election is almost a foregone conclusion. That is what political analysts say. So coming up of this, some of these critics are saying it's just a publicity stunt just to attract attention or relevance to your party and that there's nothing untoward. If you have anything to do, go and campaign well and be competitive in the next general election instead of coming up with what they say is frivolous accusations with no empirical proof.
I think those statistics that you're saying, to some extent, yes, the ruling party has won elections since independence. But what we want international community and Botswana to understand is that while BDP, the ruling BDP, for example, has won elections, we've also, as the Botswana Congress Party, questioned the type of system that is currently in use in Botswana. It's unfairly advantageous the BDP.
Paul Pico is the Publicity and Information Secretary of the opposition Botswana Congress Party. She was speaking with VOA's Peter Clotty. Tanzania has announced electricity rationing after a drop in hydropower caused by drought. The Tanzania Electricity Supply Company, or TANESCO, says some areas of the country are set to spend nearly half the day without power. As Charles Kombe reports from Dar es Salaam, the commercial capital has been rationing water for weeks.
Dar es Salaam resident Ramadan Ibrahim makes a living through his air compressor station by filling cars and motorcycle tires. But now, his business is down due to power challenges. He says this air compressor helps us earn little money to sustain our lives. The thing is, it uses electricity and the power is off, and we don't know when exactly the power will get back. So, Ibrahim asks, when there's no electricity, I stop working. Authorities say power supplies to the national grid have dropped because of the prolonged drought and ongoing maintenance at some electricity plants. Some areas are facing up to 9 hours a day without electricity. The power utility company says the electricity deficit in the country per day is between 300 and 350 megawatts. Maharage Chande is the manager of Tanzania's electric company, TANESCO. He says, among the short-term efforts we are implementing right now is to direct our abilities to gas plants and also fastening the ongoing preventive maintenance of our plants to reduce the current shortage of electricity. Chande added that the first plant that we emphasize is the Ubungo 3 extension, where we have 2 machines with the capacity of generating 80 megawatts that are under maintenance. Tanzania is working to increase its hydropower capacity, including through the ongoing construction of the Julius Nyerere Dam project in the Selous Game Reserve. which is expected to generate 2,115 megawatts of electricity. Martin Mombene is the power company's acting director for customer experience and care. He says this hydropower project is among the huge strategies that will come to tackle the electricity challenges to a large extent. Now we have reached 77% upon completion, but this project goes hand in hand with other projects, including solar generation. And as time goes on, Mwambene adds, we are going to accomplish them and make the electricity situation stabilize. Climate activists such as Venus Majula say more needs to be done to tackle the effects of climate change in the country.
We need to invest in climate action, including environmental conservation mechanisms, climate-friendly agriculture, but also investing in renewable energy. Without appropriate initiatives, climate change will further challenge water and energy management, also causing extreme weather events such as floods and droughts, as we have seen in different parts of the continent.
Drought has hit East Africa, with Tanzania's northern neighbors, Kenya, Somalia and Ethiopia, experiencing the worst drought, attributed to 4 failed rain seasons. The Dar es Salaam and Pwani regions account for 50% of Tanzania's electricity consumption. With many industries in those regions, the shortage could also affect productivity. Charles Kombe for VOA News, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania.
Namibian authorities have removed a controversial statue of a German colonial officer that was erected to mark the anniversary of the founding of the city of Windhoek, now the capital. Critics petition for the removal of the monument to a man who led German troops in a massacre of native people, and they dispute the idea that the city was founded by Germans. Vitalio Angula reports from Windhoek.
Scores of Namibians celebrated as the statue of German colonial officer Kurt von Francois was removed Wednesday from a pedestal in front of Windhoek's city buildings, where it stood for more than half a century. The monument was erected in 1965 to honor the 75th anniversary of the city's founding, which was credited to von Francois. Von Francois was governor of the area, then known as German Southwest Africa, from 1891 to 1894. But historians and activists dispute the idea that Germans who colonized Namibia from 1884 to 1915 founded the city. Former Windhoek Mayor Job Amupanda told VOA it's well known that native people were living in the area decades before the Germans arrived.
We are, first of all, people think it's a process to decolonize our space. But before we even go there, we're simply saying the statue is a representation of a lie, historically. Yeah? And because it represents a lie, so there is no argument about keeping, protecting, and sustaining a lie.
Helgarde Titus is the A. Kurt Farewell movement that in 2022 petitioned for the statue's removal. She says its presence whitewashed atrocities by German colonial forces and South Africa's apartheid government against native Namibians. South Africa's white minority government, which controlled Namibia until it won independence in 1990, forcibly removed black residents from an area of the city called the Old Location in 1959. Titus says removing the statue corrects a historical wrong.
I think it is important to say that the statue being put up is a distortion of history, because like it's mentioned, he wasn't the founder of Windhoek, but also when the statue was put up, it was 5 years after the forced removals of the Old Location, so it was very much a symbol of whitening the city.
Critics say the statue from Francois, who ordered attacks to subdue natives that saw scores massacred, should have been removed long ago. Von Francois married an ethnic Damara woman who gave birth to their daughter and still has descendants in Namibia. One of them, Sharon Nangobe, told VOA she agreed it was in the interest of the country for the statue to be removed, though she felt the descendants should have been involved in the decision. Nangobe said the family never talked about Von Francois' role in the atrocities and killings of native Herero and Nama people.
What we got from the information is that the good things that he did and what he did and what he made happen. And now I got another version of you can't put something up that kill people and then the victims that his family has to see him still standing there every single day. But it's understandable, so there's always two sides of a story.
Historians say German settlers in Namibia committed genocide by killing tens of thousands of native people. Germany agreed last year to fund $1.3 billion in development projects in Namibia over 30 years, in redress for the killings and land that was taken. But some natives argue they were not sufficiently involved in the negotiations, and in October, Namibia asked Germany to renegotiate the terms of the deal, which Berlin has refused to do. The statue of Francois was moved to Namibia's Independence Museum, where it is expected to be put on display. Vitalio Angula for VOA News, Windhoek, Namibia.
You are listening to Daybreak Africa on the Voice of America. I am James Butty in Washington. Today is Friday, November 25th. Still to come on our program, Samson O'Malley Sports. A high-ranking UN official is on a trip to Liberia to advocate for the end of female genital mutilation and child marriage. Jaha Dukure, the United Nations Women Goodwill Ambassador for Africa on female genital mutilation, is visiting Liberia to press for an end to female circumcision. Her visit coincides with the start of the 16 Days of Activism campaign against gender-based violence beginning today, Friday, and concluding December 10, United Nations Day. From Monrovia, reporter Rita Jalobwe-Duo has the story.
The World Health Organization says more than 200 million girls and women alive today have undergone female genital mutilation or FGM, and a majority are cut before turning 15 years old. The practice is recognized internationally as a violation of human rights of girls and women and an extreme form of gender discrimination. 11 out of 15 counties in Liberia practice female circumcision. Women in those areas have little or no choice as a result of their forceful initiation into bush schools where the procedure is common. Currently, there is a 3-year ban suspending the practice until 2025, but despite the moratorium, it is still being practiced. Jaha Dukure is the Goodwill Ambassador for Africa for the agency UN Women on FGM and child marriage. She is also a survivor of both. She says, if more survivors will join the campaign against FGM, there will be speedy results.
When you look at FGM, you remember the Millennium Development Goal. For decades, people were talking about ending FGM and we didn't achieve anything. But when survivors speak, you can't deny their story. You can't deny their pain, because I'm not coming from it from a place of an outsider. I'm coming from it with my own experience, trying to get an understanding and trying to come up with solutions. So I think survivor voices are essential to this campaign if we want to see any success.
Jaha also recommends initiation without mutilation, which she describes as teaching traditional norms without harming girls and women.
Africa has beautiful cultures and traditions, and it would be nearly impossible for us to come into communities and tell people that they should abandon their traditional beliefs. There's a huge possibility that you will never be able to accomplish that. But one way you can work with some of these traditional practitioners is by actually allowing them to keep the positive aspects of those traditions that they want to keep without cutting girls.
The Vice President of Liberia, Joel Howard Taylor, was asked what the government could do to ensure that all traditions are respected, except for those that harm women and girls. She said, the answer is legislation.
It has to be into law. The ban that has taken place by the Traditional Council is an attempt to say, yes, we acknowledge that there's a problem. We want to find a way to solve it. We think it's negative for our daughters. But then over the 3 years, hopefully much more will be done to provide cultural centers without female genital mutilation, where our daughters can go and learn our culture and learn what it is to be an African woman. We hope the political will from the national legislature will allow us to pass this law.
Masa Kaneka, the head of over 300 traditional practitioners in Lower Montserrat County, says she can convince her women to abolish the procedure with support from the government or the United Nations.
Them are women that be taking pay.
Massa is one of several people who have agreed to stop female genital mutilation, but only in exchange for financial assistance. This is Rita Drabwe-Duo for VOA News in Monrovia, Liberia.
At the Qatar FIFA World Cup, all 5 African nations have played their first-round matches. Today, Friday, Senegal will play its second game against host Qatar. Yesterday, Thursday, Cameroon lost 1-0 to Switzerland and Ghana lost to Portugal 3-2. Viewers Jackson Von Gagne is in the Ghanaian capital, Accra. He says Ghanaians were disappointed by the loss.
James, lots of disappointment in Accra, Ghana, as the Black Stars lose their opening match to Portugal. Coming into this match, many Ghanaians were confident that their boys would clinch their first win for Africa. As all the African teams have fallen in their opening matches. But Ghanaians were encouraged by the mainly young squad that stood up to their more experienced rivals, the Portuguese. They said that if it wasn't for the penalty, which was, questionable at best, that they would have come up at least with a draw. And, nonetheless, the Black Stars have scored the most for any African side so far. 2 goals, and they will take that momentum in their next match when they play against South Korea.
I saw a very young team, and I think I was very impressed with their performance.
Absolutely. Ghana's President Akufo-Addo joined the squad yesterday to give them inspiration and messages of love from their countrymen. This country is a soccer nation, and I wish you were here in Accra to see the traffic around 3 p.m. when everybody was getting ready, driving home or to the bars or to the clubs to go and watch the game. And during the game, the town was